Calisthenics can be confusing, and most beginners struggle. I know I did when I first started. But usually it comes down to just 3 simple mistakes. 1. Structuring workouts like it's weight training. 2. Choosing skills that don't complement each other. And 3. Forgetting to train stability. In this video, I'll show you how to fix that. How to approach your workouts, what skills I recommend, and a key exercise most people forget about. So let's get into it. With the weights, we all know the golden structure. Around 3 sets per exercise, a short rest, and then moving on to the next one. You add weight, track your numbers, and progress in small predictable steps. But is this also the approach that works best with bodyweight training? Well, if your goals are focused on the basics like pull-ups, dips, and push-ups, you can structure your trainings in a similar way, only adding more reps over time. Simple sets and reps with the basics is a great way of building strength and endurance, not to mention the aesthetic benefits. But even though it works, that's typically not the only reason we choose calisthenics. Many turn to this sport because they want to take that strength and convert it into new movements, challenge our bodies in new ways, play around and have fun. That's what calisthenics has the potential to do. Essentially, we need a new type of training, skill-specific training. And many get stuck because they also treat skills like they would weight training. But here, progress relies just as much on timing, coordination, and body awareness. So you can't measure it in the same way. Especially in the beginning, progress is almost always technical. And this makes the learning curve less predictable. Sometimes a movement will feel much harder than the week before. And that's completely normal. You gotta remember that in any new movement, the body naturally wants to conserve energy when possible. So going one arm first in a muscle up or arching the back in a handstand push-up, shortcuts that make it easier is only natural. And once you start to get conscious about technique and override these habits, it can feel like taking a step back. But while you may feel stuck, your body is slowly building new muscle memory. And what you'll experience is that after weeks of nothing, progress suddenly takes off. That's your nervous system catching up with your training. And a classic example to this is when learning the handstand. At times it can feel impossible and you'll probably want to switch up your approach to see some sort of improvement. But progress isn't linear. It comes through trial and error, often in the form of breakthroughs and realizations. One day you finally feel the right alignment and the feeling sticks. But one problem is that most beginners don't make it that far. Many get impatient, switch exercises or program, or simply move on because they can't see the progress yet. It's a classic mistake to over-adjust and not let your body adapt over time. So progress with skills is different. But what does this actually mean for how we train? Well, first off, if we want the body to learn and remember, your concentration and nervous system needs to be fresh. That's why the most important principle is to always start your sessions with skill training, and specifically with the skill you want to improve most. Secondly, we also need a more flexible approach. For example, if you're starting to get the hang of a move, like a handstand kick-up or hip drive, it makes sense to go for an extra 3 or 4 attempts in a row to really get the feeling in your body. On the other hand, if repeated attempts only make technique worse, then it's better to stop and rest. A few good attempts followed by long breaks to recover is way more efficient than grinding out to hit a rep target. But of course, to apply this, you already need to know your skill and choose a progression suited to your level. I won't go over every skill now, but there are tons of information out there and you can also check out my program if you want. When you have your exercise, you can set up the basic structure like this. First, perform attempts with full technical focus. And for statics, 1 attempt is often enough. Second, as soon as form breaks down, you rest. So if technique is bad from the beginning, your progression is too difficult. And third, repeat when you're feeling fresh again. Now, when you can't maintain technique even after resting, then it's time to move on and focus on the strength aspect. Alternatively, if you prefer more structure, you can also set a time limit and move on to sets and reps afterwards. From my experience, this combination of technical learning and strength development is what builds long-term progress. Some skills are pulling, some are pushing, some are dynamic and others are static. And while it's definitely possible to learn many of them over time, it's inefficient to learn them all at once. A small rotation to really focus on often leads to much better results, because it's simply easier to maintain skills you already know while moving on to new ones. But you can't just pick them at random. A bad skill selection will overlap, work the same muscle groups, and eventually hurt your progress. They need to complement, not compete. So let's look at some possible combinations. And remember, these are end goals, what you'll move toward through more gradual exercises first. Let's just jump straight into my favorite combination: the muscle up, the front lever, and the handstand push-up. From my experience, this trio is the perfect mix and where I experienced the fastest progress. The handstand push-up is vertical pressing, the muscle up is diagonal pulling, and the front lever is horizontal pulling. Each targets a distinct movement pattern with minimal interference, which allows you to progress across all three. That's why my new program works towards these exact skills. But I will mention that even if the muscle up and front lever are different movements, they're both pulling exercises. And for that reason, there still has to be a slight prioritizing among them when choosing how to begin your workouts. If you follow this principle of having one pulling, one pushing, and one static skill, you can switch out the movements as you like. For example, switching out the muscle up for the one-arm pull-up still works great. Same thing goes if you want to work the back lever instead of the front lever. At least that's my recommendation. But there's also another classic static duo worth mentioning, and that's the planche and the front lever. At first glance, this is also a great combination as total opposites. And while it is really cool and possible, you have to be slightly more careful, because both these exercises work the biceps in its fully stretched position. This matters because muscles are at a high risk of injury in the weakest and most lengthened state. So if you end up training these skills too frequently, you might overstrain the biceps without realizing it. Sadly, we see bicep tears way too often in the sport. So if you really like this combination, be sure to either work them in the same session or put longer rest time in between. So far we've talked about workout approach and skill selection, but there's still one thing missing, something that affects every push, pull and hold, and that's stability. Because even if you're strong, even if you've chosen the perfect skills, your progress will hit a ceiling if you can't keep your body controlled and stable. Luckily, that control almost always starts from the same place, your shoulder blades. Learning to move and stabilize the shoulder blades is especially important with calisthenics. It's the stable base from which you generate power, and if they're weak or unstable, everything falls apart. Your pull-ups feel heavy with less back activation, your handstands wobbly, and your front lever impossible. Yet most beginners tend to overlook this detail. They focus on the big movements, but forget to train the stabilizers that make those movements efficient. So if you want to draw out your full potential, I strongly recommend adding scapular movements at the start of the workout, or even just to your warm-up. A few sets of raises and shrugs. Spending just a few minutes each session getting in tune before moving on doesn't require a lot, but it makes a huge difference. Actually, from my experience, just experimenting and really trying to understand how they move and work automatically transfers to better strength and activation. Alright, that was my final tip. But before ending the video, I quickly want to mention that if you're looking for some new calisthenics equipment, my sponsors at Donation have some very high quality options. You can use my code JACOB10 for 10% off. I'll put the link in the description. That was it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next one.